All right, good morning, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Heather Grace. I'm the new city manager for Buchanan. I took over for Bill Marks, who is happily retired and off fishing in Florida, though maybe not now with the hurricane headed in his direction, but generally speaking. I moved here with my family last fall, and I'm absolutely loving Buchanan. I'm a transplant from northern Michigan. I came from West Branch, where I was city manager for just shy of 5 years. I live here now with my husband and my 2 children. My daughter Faith is just turned 3 years old. My son Lowen, he's age 9. He's going to be entering 4th grade. He attended Moccasin this year. And he really, truly loved the schools here. So you guys are very fortunate. You have a wonderful school system. I want to say too that your community at large is absolutely fantastic. The mentioning before of Chris Martin, the Volunteer of the Year award that he received from the Chamber. I'm a member of the Chamber, and I've got to say that the emphasis on community building that's everywhere in this area, just from the citizens all the way to the business owners. Everyone is willing to step up and do their part, and I've never seen an area that has so many volunteers at the ready. So I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this wonderful area. So I want to share with you a little bit today about what the city of Buchanan has been up to in the past several months. We just a couple weeks ago passed our budget, so we're now entering, as of July 1st, a new fiscal year. So rather than go by the calendar year for our budgeting and our expenditures, we go from a July 1 to a June 30. So for our budget, it's quite a complicated process because we have to make sure that we're passing several different funds. We have a general fund, which is our major expenditures. Then we also have enterprise funds where we handle things like water and sewer. So anyone who gets a water and sewer bill will be familiar with that. One of the new areas of our budget, though, that I'm most excited about and that I really want to talk to you about today is involving community development. So community development is not a department that previously existed at the city. However, shortly after I came aboard to the city of Buchanan, in talks with the city commission, we felt that economic development as a whole, but also in the more broader sense of developing the community, would be something that we wanted to focus on. Now, some folks might say, well, what is community development? That sounds sort of like a very generic term. Well, and it is very broad. It can mean a lot of different things. But what we've chose to focus on as part of community development is, number one, as I mentioned, economic development. So that means both encouraging and invigorating existing businesses here in Buchanan and providing them tools and resources to thrive. But also, number two, bringing in new employers so that we have good paying jobs for our citizens. We want to make sure that everyone who lives here has a chance at a quality wage that will allow them to afford the things that they need to live in Buchanan. And that also leads into another area of community development, which is housing. We have a beautiful area here, but the housing market, for anyone who's ever looked at that, is a very tricky market right now and has been for a while in Buchanan. There's a particular segment of our community that really doesn't have a lot of options for housing, and we sort of term that the missing middle for housing. Now, what we mean by missing middle are folks who are not eligible for Section 8 housing, so they don't qualify for government subsidized housing because they have a job that makes just a little bit too much money. However, there are also those folks who don't make enough money to afford a lot of the housing options that do exist in Buchanan, especially with the housing market being as hot and expensive as it has been. So we're really trying to find ways where we can bring in developers who can build that missing middle target demographic housing. So that would be quality single-family housing that a young family who has, just sort of a middle income job could afford to live and work here in Buchanan. Now that means a lot of our teachers, our firefighters, people who are here, who are serving our community, we want them to actually be able to live in the community that they serve. So again, when we talk about community development, we're also talking about quality of life issues for our citizens. In a lot of ways, we feel like recreation is a really important part of that. Later on, I'm going to be talking about some presentations that we've given and that we are now moving forward into implementation to increase recreational offerings for our citizens to improve their quality of life. But beyond that, we also view that as part of our economic development strategy. I know from personal experience as a mom with kids, I'll travel to other communities if they have a nice park, if they have a nice trail, if they have a nice, children's museum, anything that is going to have some sort of a recreational opportunity. I'll travel to those areas with my family and visit for the day, if it's within driving distance. Now, obviously, we have a lot of very nice communities within driving distance of Buchanan. We really want to encourage those people to come here, experience Buchanan. And again, from personal experience, when I go those places, I'll stop and buy lunch. After we're done, if I see a shop that's open that looks cute, we'll go shopping. There's ways to get people to come spend time and spend money in Buchanan. And we really think that once people see Buchanan, even though we're just a little bit off the beaten path for some people, once they experience it, they'll want to return again and again. So we're really trying to build that segment of our economy, that tourism, and that even just local recreation destination day trip. So I'm going to move into some of the presentation. Rich Murphy, our Community Development Director, is unfortunately not able to attend today, but I'm going to discuss a little bit about his community development projects that we recently went over in our budget talks with the Commission. One moment here. So in the Great Buchanan tradition, we like to focus on things that make us quintessentially part of Buchanan. And we think for us, that's focusing on our community pride, but also our patriotism, which is why we hang the large flag downtown. And it also pays homage to the great groups in Buchanan. We've got the Masons, we've got the American Legion. We have a lot of people who are giving back. So we're going to focus also on downtown development, because really that's the heart of the city. We want to make sure that we're building up the downtown area to be that destination. So part of the thought process is we're going to have a 3-gear strategy for community development. First is placemaking. Now placemaking is just what I was discussing before, building up that location to be a destination for people to come visit, but even more importantly, a place that people who live here want to stay. We want people to, once they've raised their families, we want their children to either stay in Buchanan as a whole, or if they go off somewhere for education or for an initial job experience, once they're able to make their plans to root their family, we want them to choose to come back and root their family here. There's a lot of examples of multi-generational families in Buchanan who've done that, and we want to continue to build upon that. We really feel like that's the key to success, is making this the place that families as a whole want to continue generation after generation to stay. So second gear is small business development and bringing new residents to move to Buchanan. And third gear is business development, job creation, and going after bigger fish. So that goes back to the strategy of trying to make those higher paying jobs so that people can afford a quality of life here that we think they deserve. So we're really fortunate that we have new funding sources in this fiscal year and hopefully coming fiscal years that we didn't previously have access to. One is marijuana revenue. As many of you are aware, we do have cannabis retailers and also manufacturers and processors here in the city of Buchanan. Part of that licensure process with the state of Michigan enables us to collect some revenue from those retail establishments in particular. This past year, we received $84,000 just over from the state of Michigan for having those retail establishments located in our community. So we're choosing to designate a good portion of those funds towards these community development goals. So we're going to look to try to improve quality of life and also build upon our economic development opportunities. So stimulus revenue. A lot of you are probably aware, because of the coronavirus, there were several federal stimulus packages that have been passed by our Congress. So those funds are divided up. States get a certain portion, counties get a certain portion, and then also local communities get a certain portion. So we're eagerly anticipating, we haven't yet received those, but we do expect to receive them probably within the next few weeks. In total, we're anticipating about $420,000 over a 2-year span, but we don't yet have the full guidance from the state of Michigan on exactly what that number will be and exactly when we will receive those payments. That's just the current anticipation. But we're trying to plan ahead and determine what we're going to spend those funds on. And then general revenue. That's typically going to be the property tax revenue that we receive, supplemented by other revenues that we receive from the state. So some of the economic development incentives that we're going to try to make use of are a downtown facade grant, which would be a forgivable loan of up to $10,000. That would be a 50-50 matching program. So facade, they're talking about the front of the building. What does it look like from the outside? So you wouldn't use that for any interior improvements, but you could change the exterior looks of the building, make it look fresh, new paint, maybe tuck point some of the bricks, new siding, anything like that. But we are also going to emphasize historic preservation in those programs. Upper story residential, that's another thing that is really going to, I think, move forward a lot this summer and next. I think you're going to see a lot of new downtown apartments start construction hopefully soon. we have some really good incentives from the state of Michigan itself, and we're going to try to build upon those to make those even more enticing. We have some businesses downtown right now that have upper story, and maybe they're just being used for cold storage, or they're just not really utilized to the best capability. We feel like if we can encourage those people to make those residences in the upper stories, that really helps build that placemaking and that vibrancy downtown, because when people live downtown, they're going to walk around downtown. And it's just sort of human nature that if you see a bunch of people walking around and looking like they're having fun, you're more wanting to do so yourself. So it just generally is the case. City after city has found that to be true. The more you can get people to walk around in your downtown, the more other people will want to do so. The more people you have out and about walking around, the better all the businesses do. All the restaurants, if you just happen to be walking by, you smell something good and you go in, or you walk by and you see something in the window, you might go in and shop. So in addition to that, we're looking at up to a $10,000 per unit forgivable loan at 50-50 matching, similarly to the downtown facade grant match. So for our small business expansion or relocation program, up to a $10,000 forgivable loan, also 50-50 match. If they're relocating a business, so moving a business into Buchanan, and they're creating at least 3 jobs. Now for the Red Bud Trail Residential Corridor Program, we're looking at up to a $2,500 forgivable loan, also with a 50-50 match. This is more targeted, as it states in the name, at residential rather than business, because we want to make sure that we're allowing people in areas where maybe the neighborhoods are a little more depressed, there hasn't been as much maintenance on the homes. We want to try to encourage them to get those homes back up to code, fix any problems they may have, and it just improves the overall look of the community, especially on the corridors. That's why we're focusing on the corridors. When you have people come from out of town, if they're driving down a main corridor and they see houses in disrepair, that sort of sets the tone for the community. It sends a message about the community. We want the message to be that Buchanan invests in its own people and that we allow people, even if they're less fortunate, to keep their homes up to where they should be. So in discussion with Michigan Gateway Foundation, who I have to say is an absolutely fantastic partner, and you guys are so fortunate to have them here, they're going to be helping us, especially in the residential program. They too have that goal of wanting to take people out of poverty and allow them to fix their own homes and stay in their own homes. And that does actually disproportionately affect a lot of our senior citizens in Buchanan who are still at their homes, but maybe don't have the money to pay someone to do some of the manual labor tasks in their yard or to their house that they used to do themselves. Also, Michigan Gateway is looking to partner with us in a lot of the recreational offerings that I discussed. They too share that goal and that vision of making Buchanan a destination where we're going to bring people here and also build upon quality of life for our residents. So part of that, you guys may have already heard, we have a new summer concert series in addition to the Thursday programs, which are still continuing. We're also offering Friday, Saturday, or Sunday concerts all throughout the summer. And we're trying to bring in larger acts, and those are all going to be downtown at the Common. So if anyone wants more information on that after today, I can share that with you guys as well.
It's also in the news, going to be in the newsletter, what we have in August. So we've been putting those in.
Yeah, because we have one this Friday at 7, Way Down Wanderers. They're supposed to be a really great band. An opportunity to partner with local financial institutions. That's another thing we're really fortunate to have is a great number of banks and credit unions here in Buchanan who really make sure that they are trying to emphasize their connection with the community. And through that, they've done things like donate money towards our trails, which I'll talk more about later. But we're just really trying to build upon those relationships and give them good opportunities to invest in Buchanan. So Buchanan Redevelopment Blade Sign Program. So again, with more of an emphasis on the downtown for this particular incentive program, blade signs are exactly what's pictured, the ones that stick out from a building. And the reason we're encouraging blade signs is that in the Michigan Municipal League's research, these are the types of signs that are most likely to encourage that downtown pedestrian walkability. When people are walking through our downtowns, they are able to see what the name of the business is when they're going down the sidewalks, and they're more likely to go in. So we also want to make sure we're creating what's called a technical assistance fund. So what we mean by that are there are a lot of programs right now, for instance, federal or state programs that businesses qualify for, but they either don't know that they qualify for them or they don't understand how to jump through the loops, because unfortunately there's always red tape involved with those types of programming. A good example is some of the federal or state historic tax credits that people can be eligible for if they have a historic building, which a lot of our downtown qualifies, yes. So we're trying to bring in people, we've already identified some great experts with experience in this field who know how to quickly match a property owner with a historic property up to the program. They help them with the paperwork, they show them how to get that rolling so that those people do continue to qualify year after year for those historic preservation tax credits. So we're also looking to help investors apply for projects through the MEDC, which is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We actually have a number of businesses right now that the city is currently working with to try to bring in really substantial investments from the MEDC. We're talking up several $1 million in some cases. So a lot of these projects are still confidential at this point. They don't allow us to discuss them until contracts are signed with the different developers, but know that there are several really exciting projects in the works, including some that involve new business incubators, lots of really exciting things. Another opportunity that's not mentioned on this slide, I've recently been in conversation with the, at the federal level, the branch under the U.S. Department of Commerce, which is the EDA, the Economic Development Administration. They are also indicating that a particular property that is vacant and has been vacant for, I think, at least 7 years, is eligible for up to $1.8 million and may become a community center that we can offer for the children of our area. So there's a lot of things, again, that are in the works. I wish I could share all the details of them, but know that there are a lot of really exciting things on the horizon. And also professional assistance to investors for redevelopment due diligence. So the due diligence part is making sure that the project is actually feasible and going to be financially affordable. Because that work, I'm sorry, nope, you're just fine, Wayne, a little closer. Because that work can be costly, it sometimes is an impediment for especially a new business to enter a market. So we're trying to encourage those entrepreneurs who might have a wonderful idea, but they're not as familiar with that process. They don't know how to get into the market. So we're trying to make that assistance available as well. So we also feel like promotion of our area and marketing Buchanan to our surrounding neighborhood and communities is really important. It's sort of surprising to us how many people who live nearby Buchanan really don't know a whole lot about it or haven't been here. And we feel like that's a shame and something we want to remedy. No problem, gives me a chance to take a drink. So we really want to start a video series. We feel like that whole picture says 1,000 words scenario is something we should seize upon. So we're going to be partnering with some local artists who can both take photos and videos, and we're going to compile those into making some really nice promotional videos for the community at large. We're going to emphasize different areas of our community. One of them, we've made a Memorial Day video already. We're going to be making a Best of Buchanan, parts 1 and 2, a Made in Buchanan that will focus on the entrepreneurs and the manufacturers that exist here in our community, an entrepreneurial spirit and innovation video where we're trying to show employers that are outside of our community, look, we're ready to invest and help your business grow if you decide to plant your business here and bring jobs our way. And also Concerts in the Common video. As mentioned before, with Michigan Gateway and several of our other businesses in the area contributing and donating money to make this new concert series, we really want to promote that. We feel very strongly that if we get people to come to our downtown and just experience a show while they're here, they'll see the charm of our community and they'll want to come back. City at work. So that's another area we want to make sure that we're highlighting to our taxpayers what the city actually does with their tax dollars. So this one's more focused on making sure that people who are already here in Buchanan understand what we're doing and stay updated with what's happening in the city. And then 4 seasons of community activity. We do have a lot of great offerings, and Buchanan looks so beautiful in all its many 4 seasons. So we're going to try to highlight that and let people know that, look, you don't have to come to Buchanan just for the summer concert series. You can come back in spring, you can come back in fall, you can come back in winter. We have great activities year long. So the enhancement and packaging of online and brochures for a developer's toolkit is the way that we're going to advertise our different incentive programs to employers in our region. We're making partnerships with some of our strategic groups that help service the region at large, for instance, Southwest Michigan Planning, also some of our regional chambers of commerce. So we want to really spread the word that Buchanan is actively trying to bring business to our community. And our Stronger Neighborhoods Program Initiative, that's going to be building upon that $2,500 grant, making sure that people are aware of the program, they know how to get that assistance. But beyond that, in areas beyond just the corridor, making sure that we're connecting people who need that assistance with local volunteers. As mentioned before, we have a lot of volunteers. If we know there's someone in need of having something rehabbed on their house, if we can get some folks willing to volunteer their time and help with that, we're going to try to coordinate those programs and make that easier for people to ask for that help. Even if it's as simple as, I need help raking my yard.
Would that also be like for seniors? I mean, that'd be something that we definitely need to.
Yes, that project is being developed right now, and once we have all the details, we will definitely come to the senior center, probably request to do a presentation on that. Yeah, we'd love to be able to do that. See the River Initiative. This is another one that's really exciting. So we have sort of this amazing opportunity in Buchanan of underutilized properties, and a lot of them are city-owned. So we have some, if you're over on Richards Drive, and you know where the river is in that area, so there's a park, and it has a restroom, but the restroom is closed. So right now, we're going to look to rehab that restroom, and also you can't see unless you're there at winter and looking down over the bluff. But when the trees are cleared, and historically we're told that they used to be cleared back so you could see the river, there's actually an amazing view. Yes?
Can you give us a better idea of that location?
Sure.
Again, show us on a map or something, where that, is on Richard Street is on the river?
Let's see here.
Is it up a Redbud? What was like your name? We go down that walk that way.
So sometimes they'll call it Upper Riverfront Park, and then there's the lower where the boat launch is.
Oh, so it's kind of north of where that boat place is?
Is it up the Redbud?
Yeah, it's so
North
that
of where
book
the curve-
depository is where
Okay.
the drive is to that public boat ramp.
So, okay.
North Redbud Trail?
So
or are you
this
talking
is
about-
Richard Street right here.
Oh, we
it's
can't
not
see
showing.
it.
Oh, let me see if I can.
So we're talking about Smitty's Marina, does that ring a bell with anybody?
What used to be down there?
That's a long
Is that
time
where
ago.
that is?
North Redbud? I think that's.
So it's
North
just
Florida?
north of where that curve.
Yes.
That's
out of
Smitty's
town
Marina.
is, and when it gets to 35.
Yeah, before you get to Wheatberries,
Yeah.
Very, yeah, that's.
before you get down
By
to
Wheatberry.
the launch.
Here we go.
So we need to talk about streets, so it's North
there it is.
Redbud or Portage.
So this
Oh,
is
so it's right
Riverfront Drive
before.
that goes to
It's
the boat
before
launch.
that.
And this is Redbud Trail. If instead of
Correct.
continuing on Redbud, if you were to turn right onto Richards, this area right here, I'll switch to the satellite view. Maybe that'll show it a little better.
That's Smitty's Marina.
So
For
this
those of you
right
that have been
here-
a long
That's a
time.
park.
Yeah, this is a park owned by the city, but really not much has been done with it. And I don't think anyone even knows it's a park because nothing's been done with it.
Armand, you go right there.
So we're trying to change that. This little thing right here that you can see on the map
Yeah.
are those restrooms I referred to, but they're in a
Really?
state of disrepair and unusable right now. And unfortunately, that's a little bit of a theme we've noticed, is that there's some different city-owned properties that just, again, we're not fully utilized, we think, to their best capability, but having riverfront property that's this large and, right on such a gorgeous stretch, because if you come here in the winter and stand right about here, there's an area that you can see down, all the way down this area of the river, and it's a really gorgeous view. And when we spoke to people in the north side community here, they let us know that historically, the city, many, many moons ago, used to keep this trimmed up, because now it's sort of overgrown with invasive species vegetation. But if we were to, and then again, going back to, we call it the See the River Initiative, we want to get back to that historic time when you actually could see the river. And we feel like we could really develop this here into something beautiful.
Is that where the trail extension is going?
So part of the Andrews University project proposed a inn and restaurant right here built onto the bluff, and then a trail system that would go down the bluff and go along the water's edge all the way down to where this boat launch area is. And we've been talking about improving this boat launch area, potentially putting in like a kayak area, something of that nature, building up, because it's used by fishers a lot here, fishermen, making some more opportunities for the people who want to fish. One of the things I'll talk about later, since I have it up now, I'll mention it, this Riverfront Drive, for anyone who's tried to traverse it, it is a very difficult road to go down. So there is asphalt that goes down this portion to right about here, because this is the book depository, so they have trucks come down and collect the books, drop them off and collect them and go back and forth. But beyond that, it is just dirt and gravel, but there are a lot of erosion issues. So this road is constantly washed out, and no matter how many times the city tries to grade it, 2 days later, it'll be completely washed out again. So unless you have a large four-wheel drive truck, it's not recommended to go down at this point. But again, we feel like that really leads this to be completely underutilized and not accessible to the public in the way that we think that it should be. It's a publicly owned area. We want everyone in the public to be able to access and enjoy this site. Yeah, that's a big thing we're looking at right now. Another grant that we've applied for, and they've indicated that we're eligible, is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant. We don't yet know the amount, but it sounds like potentially in November we'll find out more detail about how much we'll be getting from them. We have an expert from U.S. Fish and Wildlife who specializes in erosion and floodplain mitigation. They're going to be meeting up with us very soon to talk about this drive and strategies for how we can maybe put in culverts or do some tiles and really make sure that we're dealing with that erosion and runoff issue, and then building up that road and paving it so that it can be used by people.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. There we go. So our goal is again to address the blight, and by blight we mean our own city blight. The city-owned restroom there is not in a good state of repair. We want to fix that. And the neglect of just many years of not trimming back the invasive species. We want to fix that. And we really want to activate what we're sort of terming Bucktown Bluff. We want to make it a place that will bring positive development to the area, because it's going to improve the property values of anyone who lives there if we make that a beautiful site as opposed to just this area of overgrowth and a neglected and abandoned bathroom. So we're either going to demo or rehab the bathroom structures. We're doing feasibility right now to see if it's worth saving, how bad the plumbing is, that sort of thing. We also want to engage an ecological consultant. We talked about Chris Martin and his involvement with Tree Friends. We're going to be reaching out to them, but also some other foresters and people who know more about ecological preservation than myself to tell us which invasive species do we need to take out and what's the best way to do that. How do we preserve the good hardwood trees that are there, best practices. We also want to improve parking in that area. Right now it's just grass. We want to put in some crushed granite and make that a place that people can come and they can park and they can view the site. And we want to put a new sign there so that people understand this is publicly owned property. This is a park. This, as you guys just demonstrated, so many people in Buchanan don't even realize that because it's never been utilized. So we're looking to put resources into improving that site.
Excuse me, so this gentleman that's coming in
Yes.
will be able to explain the process of all the water?
That's yes, that he's supposed to be able to guide us in the best way to deal with, because it's in a floodplain and there's a lot of erosion. So he's going to give us best practices to mitigate that, how we can keep the water from continually washing out and undermining that road.
Because years ago, I remember when people would stop all the time and get water from that. Remember that? I think it was an artesian well, and people would go there and collect
Down by
water.
the boat launch, there was an artesian well?
Across the Red Bug, but
Okay.
pretty much across from where the boat ran, the boats.
Yeah.
So, and when you're dealing with that, that's big.
It is. It's a lot of work, especially as you mentioned with an artesian
That
well.
water seems to have its own idea.
There's one thing, there's no stopping water. You can
No.
chat, you ask it politely to redirect, but you can't stop it. That's for sure. That's why we're bringing in the experts. Definitely.
And I hope they know something.
I hope so too, because it truly is a gorgeous site, and we want to make it so that everyone can use and enjoy it.
I have a home in the township, and my dad built that home on a spring. So it'll be debatable how well they can do that. I mean, those springs are powerful.
They are, and we have our current Public Works building is actually in a floodplain area, and as there's always standing water around it, even during the drought. And there's a lot of areas in Buchanan that have, erosion and floodplain issues.
There's a lot of water.
There is. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a two-sided coin.
The beautiful geography is also
It is. It creates the many
You know,
beautiful
the
places we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Water, water, water.
You just have to learn to work with the water rather than trying to fight against it. Yep. So as part of, again, our Andrews University project, we did have a proposal for a splash pad, which a lot of community members, it sounds like, have been really wanting over the years. The location that was proposed, I thought was very unique. It was one that had never occurred to me. When you're facing the common stage, right to the left of the common, they're proposing trying to place it in that general vicinity so that when people are out listening to live music, they could have their children right there playing and they can still sort of keep an eye on them and see what they're doing. It would really invigorate the downtown as opposed to putting it maybe out in a residential park area. You're trying to bring people to the downtown and encourage them to walk, shop, and eat in our restaurants. Right now, we're looking at a model from South Haven's splash pad because they recently won an award for one of the best splash pads in the whole country. And so we have an architecture firm that we're trying to do diligence with to make sure that it's going to be feasible at the location we're proposing. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. Splash pads are actually really complicated and they've changed even year to year as far as best practices. Some recommend recirculating water, some recommend using different water every time, and some treat it differently depending on what type of splash pad it is. So we want to make sure that when we do it correctly. So we're going to take our time on this one, but also make sure that we're trying to get it for the community as quick as possible since it is a priority for a lot of, especially the younger families. This is another that we have, as I mentioned before, the generosity of this area. There's a local individual who thus far has asked to remain anonymous, who's willing to contribute a substantial sum towards this project, and they're partnering with Michigan Gateway to do so. So we're very fortunate and thankful for that partnership. However, there's going to still be a funding gap because they are quite expensive. So there's a program that we're probably going to utilize once we get the due diligence done and find out what the total price tag is for this venture. It's called Public Spaces, Community Places, and that is through the Michigan Municipal League, or MML. And what they do is, if anyone of you have ever seen like a GoFundMe page on Facebook or anything like that, the MML will send in a video crew. They will make a short promotional video, and then then you sort of push it out there and ask members of the community to donate money. And for every $1 that the community donates, the MEDC will match. So you're doubling the impact of any donations in your area towards a project. And again, we want to make sure that we're touching base with the health department and making sure that we're making it a very safe splash pad. Because there are splash pads that sometimes show up in the news that if they're not maintained properly or the water's not treated properly, they can spread illness to children. That's the last thing we want. So again, a project we're going to be very careful and do the right way the first time. So again, trying to get people to open new businesses in our downtown. For restaurateurs, a lot of the ways they are able to make their business profitable is they almost, I don't want to say always, but in a lot of cases, they need a liquor license to keep profitability, in a downtown especially. That just seems to be what the market is. Right now, we don't have any eligible new liquor license opportunities for anybody, so we're trying to find ways to change that. Different ways we can do that is through tax increment finance authorities, corridor improvement authorities, and principal shopping districts. So we're just looking at all of our different options to try to reinvigorate the restaurant business. So we also have a really neat project that was brought up as part of the Andrews University presentation, which is on Redbud Trail from Front Street to Richard Street. We're going to be reducing the number of lanes. Now, a lot of you are probably aware that historically that was such a large road because when Clark was in operation, when everyone would get off work at the same time, the traffic would be so heavy, you needed that 4 lanes so that you didn't have so much congestion that people couldn't move through. You know, for better or worse, things have changed. That's no longer a need in our community, is to have that 4-lane stretch of road. We just don't have the traffic to necessitate that. So we were trying to determine what is the best use of that, because you have to view streets as an asset of the city, which they are. What is the best way we can use that asset to benefit our community? And we felt that keeping it 4 lanes wasn't necessary and wasn't really improving anything, but if we were to do what we call a road diet, reduce it down to 2 lanes, we could take that extra space that we've now gained and put in a bike lane that would lead out to the areas that we're trying to improve on the north side so that people could more easily traverse that area in non-motorized transportation. And we're also trying to put in ways to make that more walkable. It's going to connect eventually to our trail system. But we want to beautify that area as well. We want it to look really aesthetically pleasing when you drive through there. So we're going to try to put in special paint. It's really going to be a relatively cheap project. This one's going to start in the fall. We've already got an engineer and a contractor lined up to do this project. So this one will be a reality over the next couple of months. There is a picture I can try to pull up and show you. For some reason, the website wasn't working earlier, but I'll try again, see if I can get it to pull up. Okay, still not working. So I'll just try to describe it, I guess. Again, it's really beautiful ways that they've chose to restripe and repaint that, and then in between make it so that there's side street parking, but we can also put in planters, put in some really beautiful, whether we're gonna have bushes or trees or flowers. We haven't fully decided what the landscaping scheme is gonna be, but just really beautify that area. We're also playing with the idea of there's different types of paint that react depending upon the environment. Some of them will, if they get wet, they'll glow a certain way. So we're trying to make it an exciting drive so that someone would make that a destination that they actually want to drive through that area. There we go. And I'll just mention the tree planting. The tree friends are really instrumental in helping guide us in these projects and also plantings throughout the entire city. The city has decided to make some substantial investments. We're going to be planning to plant, I believe it's 400 trees over the next 4 years. So we're really going to try to improve the tree canopy in Buchanan. We're trying to emphasize the hardwoods that do really well in this region. So again, going back to the trees, we view them as infrastructure. It's a vital part of our ecology here in Buchanan and also our economy. We want to make sure that we're not losing sight that if we take a tree down somewhere else because, for instance, it's interfering with the utility, that we're just not replacing it. We want to replace it, but also improve our tree canopy. So is anyone familiar with this site here?
I am, my house is
Oh,
right
yeah,
across the
right.
street.
Bike by there every
A lot of people have opinions about this location. Some see it as an eyesore, others see it as a really cool place with some really neat history. And it's something that we're very excited. We're trying to partner with a group right now to preserve as many sections of this as possible. But the present plan is to move towards a demolition of that site. We've tried for many years, the city has, to try to find a developer that was willing to take on this entirety of this building and redevelop it. But it just seems that as the years have gone on, that especially the electric utilities and other utilities that will be part of the economic due diligence of someone actually investing in this building, it just seems like it's too expensive, that no one's willing to make that investment. So we are gonna, again, try to preserve as much of this as possible, but the present plan is once that preservation is done and some of these sections are moved off site, that the rest of it would be demolished and we would make that property available for development. So this is another property that's city-owned, and it's sort of setting the tone for, we have a lot of city-owned property that for many years the city just sort of owned but with no plan for what to do with it, and nothing much was thought about as far as what in future years will this become. We want to come up with a long-term strategy of finding developmental purposes for these properties or making them great places for the public to utilize. It's going to be one or the other. We don't just want to have a blank piece of property with no plan that the city is sitting on and not doing anything with. We either want to develop it and make it a special place for the community, or we want to find a way to get a new business to come in or new residential development that meets our missing middle income housing goals and put something to activate that space and improve the area as a whole.
In those grain bins or those drying bins, they're really dangerous.
Yes, they are. We worry all the time about
I do
that,
too.
and we want to get that taken care of. So we're also looking at a blight task force redevelopment fund. So again, we have a lot of homes in our area that just need some work, that maybe just maintenance over the years got let go. So we're going to try to help those people and find ways to get that maintenance work done. and find ways that we can partner with other groups such as Michigan Gateway and other community foundations to help us achieve those goals. So Mill Alley, right now the Mill Alley that heads out to Piers Mill from downtown, we're trying to make some improvements to that to just sort of, again, activate that space and make it look more inviting so that people want to go down that alley. And we want to lean into our new designation as nicest place in America by getting more signage, especially signage on Route 12. Again, making sure that Buchanan is not this unknown destination off the beaten path. We want people to know we're here and know that we're a place worth visiting. Some of you may have already heard about the social district. So the commission did pass the creation of a social district. Now that's not fully implemented until the state of Michigan approves the licensees who choose to opt into that program. So that's the process we're in right now. They did create a social district in our downtown, and what that is they draw a line around the map and circulate an area that is going to be designated with signage. And people who come into that area, should they so choose, if they go into a licensed establishment, can purchase an alcoholic beverage with a specialized cup and a wristband. And then if they keep it in that cup and keep their wristband on, they can walk in just that designated area. So they could, for instance, buy a glass of wine and walk downtown and window shop and that sort of thing.
So it's not gonna be like those Niles where they close off the street?
No, we're not closing off the streets, nope. Buchanan Online Zoning Map Project. So this is actually a feasibility assistance tool for businesses that want to locate in Buchanan. Easily able to access a lot of the zoning questions that a business has before they choose to invest in the area is really key. If someone tries to come into an area and they're unable to quickly get answers to their questions about zoning, for instance, is my business even allowed to operate in this area of the city? That's a roadblock if we can't quickly accommodate those requests. And anymore in the information age, people just expect answers like that. They don't even want to have to talk to someone. They want to be able to jump on our website and with the click of the mouse know the answer to their question. That's really the best practice at this point and what a lot of other communities are doing. We want to make sure we're staying competitive and not falling behind. So that does take some investment. We're going to have to, for about $2,500, purchase the imaging from the Berrien County in order to make sure we have that available on our website. But not only will it help bring more business to our area, it'll be really helpful to residents here. If you have a question about your own property, am I allowed to have a home business? Am I allowed to put a fence up? You can access that online and have those tools. We'll still be happy to help at City Hall if you have questions, but some folks prefer to just be able to jump on and get their questions answered that way. We want to make sure that's an option for people. So public art is another area that we think is really important. We're very fortunate to have such a great community art center here in Buchanan, and we have a number of really talented artists in our community. We want to make sure that we're showcasing that talent and putting public art out there to make our area engaging and somewhere that people want to come, go through, walk around, and check out the beautiful pieces of art that we have on display. So as you can see, we're putting in a lot of emphasis into these community development programming. And we're making use of the different categories, the marijuana funding, stimulus funding, and in some cases, general fund, the splash pad. Does anyone have any questions about that portion? All right.
So that's more than the marijuana funding? That
Yes,
total?
that it
So
is.
that's
Because
coming
we're
out of other sources too?
the stimulus funding as well. Yep. So it's almost 10 o'clock, but if you guys are okay with it, I will walk through some other just general things that were going on at the city beyond just community development. Would that be all right? All right, so I'll let you know that, again, a part of the budget process, we did discuss some changes that we're looking to do. We had some key questions that we asked the city commission that were really policy issues. Should the city add a rental inspection program? Should the city add some key new positions? And should we restructure some of its departments? And so the proposal was for a rental inspection program that would basically have the city create a new position. And that new position would allow that person to, the city at large would collect a rental inspection fee for any landlord in the community. And that fee would be used to pay the compensation for an independent contractor who would go around and make sure that any rented properties are up to code. There's some really important code safety issues that we want to make sure are getting addressed. The recent fire that was at the apartments, some of that, it was grandfathered in, so they were okay, but they weren't up to code in some of the fire issues, that we want to make sure that all the rentals in the community are up to code and that we're keeping people safe. And a lot of times rental tenants can be a vulnerable group. I want to make sure even if they're low income that they're being protected. So that was approved by the city commission, so that will be starting very soon.
So almost half of the units in Buchanan are rentals?
They are.
Wow.
Yes, we have a very substantial number of rentals in Buchanan. So for the section where we were discussing adding key new positions, one that's really exciting is that the commission did approve the creation of a chamber director / Main Street manager. So what that position is going to be is our Buchanan Area Chamber of Commerce, or BACC, currently has a part-time chamber executive who runs the chamber, but because that person's only part-time and they've made indication that they plan to resign, they weren't sure their path forward of how they were going to continue the chamber, because it's difficult to recruit someone to do that type of job when you can only offer a very low pay and part-time wages. So we decided that a partnership with the city would make a lot of sense, because we could subsidize that portion to make sure that it could be a full-time position. And so essentially that person's going to dedicate approximately half of their time to chamber initiatives, which means they're going to be building up our local businesses. And then the other half of their time, they'll be serving as what we call a Main Street manager. The reason we're calling it that is because there is a program the state of Michigan offers called the Main Street Program. And if we have this position and we jump through a few other hoops and become fully certified as a Main Street community, there's a whole other pot of grant funding that we become eligible for. And our downtown really has access to a lot more grant funding to help improve the businesses that are already existing downtown. So we feel like this investment is really key and something we can build upon and get even more dollars in for the money that we put in. The other is a city engineer that would be an independent contractor. So this person would only be part-time, and they would help us oversee some of the projects that we're going to be doing, especially in 2023. We have a complete redesign and reconstruct of Front Street. So that's going to be a very large, very expensive project. We're going to be completely tearing out the roads and the sidewalks, replacing all the water, all the sewer, all the storm sewer. So a lot of infrastructure upgrades. Now we are going to be hiring an independent firm that has their own engineers, but we want our own engineer to review their assessments and make sure they're saving us money, that the project's not being over-engineered, and that we're not expending taxpayer dollars on something that's not really necessary. So they're going to help us keep costs down. And then also adding a full-time police officer. That individual, we're already in recruitment right now. They're going to be having a focus on patrolling, doing walking patrols downtown, enforcing parking, making sure people are being safe in the downtown area, and also putting more time in with our schools. We're going to partner with our school system and have a closer relationship between the city and the schools and allow that officer to do programming within our school systems. And then additional part-time staff at City Hall. So it looks like it's 10 o'clock, so I will wrap things up. Thank you guys all so very much. I appreciate your time. Yes.
Are you going to have Throw on the Hill this August?
Not this August. The commission voted a few months ago to not do it this year because we weren't sure what the COVID restrictions were going to be, and it takes several months of planning, but we are going to do it next year for sure.
I just have one question.
Sure.
You know, whatever decisions the city commission makes affects the people in the township too, but we can't vote for them.
Correct.
Why? Doesn't make sense.
Well, because you can vote for your township representatives. That's just sort of the way they divide the representative form of government. But you're more than welcome to, you can always come and speak at our city commission meetings, and the city commission would always take anyone's comments into consideration, regardless of where they live.
I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but we can continue on with the questions if you'd like to. And I'm just give me 1 moment. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you.